Welcome to the Point Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Rinn, and today my guest is Taylor Page of Morrison Plus Property Inspections of Pasadena. Taylor was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And upon graduation from the University of Minnesota, Taylor moved to California, and in 2015, he completed a 2-year apprenticeship under the direction of his stepfather and became a full-fledged property inspector, conducting solo inspections since then. In 2018, he bought into a franchise under the Morrison Plus Property Inspections. So Taylor is certified throughout California Real Estate Inspection Association. That's a CREIA. And since 2016, he have over 3,000 inspections under his belt. His plan by the end of this year is to employ another full-time inspector and have a sewer camera inspection division as well. So, Taylor, please tell us, if I'm a homeowner and I want to hire a home inspector, what questions should I ask? How should I hire this person to know that really is this person qualified or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, good morning, Louis. Thank you for having me on this morning. To just get started, jumping into the questions, if you're going to qualify a home inspector, I think, first of all, you got to find out if, first of all, you get along with them. There's a lot of home inspectors out there, and there's a lot of high quality, good home inspectors. However, there's maybe some that don't exactly fit your needs. I think the first thing you'd want to ask them is, what kind of experience they have. Second, do you go into attics? Will you go into a crawl space? How do you inspect those areas? You want to make sure that whoever you're hiring is actually going to go look at stuff if they're there. Some people, we hear all kinds of horror stories, but some people, they refuse to do that, or they won't get on a roof or things like that. So you just want to be able to make sure that you get the most complete home inspection from whoever you hire, whoever that might be.
Let me ask you this. I just mentioned about the association, but is a home inspector required to be licensed in California?
No, you do not need a license to operate in the state of California as a home inspector. You do not require any kind of insurance, general liability, or errors and omissions. You can have a flashlight and a ladder and market yourself on Google as much as you want, call yourself a home inspector, and you can operate in California without a license. Having said that, there are several avenues of becoming accredited. There's the association I'm from, which is the California Real Estate Inspection Association. There's a national one called ASHI. There's InterNACHI. There's several methods of actually becoming accredited and certified, but you do not need a license to be a home inspector in California.
So, being a mortgage lender myself, if anybody wants to check my credentials, they can go on the NMLS website and either make a complaint or just find out whether Louis Rinn is a genuine lender or not. These associations you just mentioned, can people check you out, for instance, or any other inspector? Would they?
Yes.
You can.
You can, yeah. So if you go to, for instance, our or my association, if you go to CREIA.org, you can check and see who is an affiliate, which that pretty much means they're an associate inspector, which means they're going through the ropes to try to become certified, or there is a certified inspector, which means you've gone through all the training, you passed the exams, you've submitted, I think it was 20 or 30 inspection reports for the higher ups to read over and decide whether or not you're qualified or not. And then a step beyond that, there's a master inspector. So yes, you can for our organization and for ASHI. That's ASHI. It's very similar to the California real estate. It's just on a national level. You can check that, and the InterNACHI as well. You can check those credentials.
Great, and that's good news. Taylor, there is a question in my mind. We talked a little bit about earlier that, I'm dealing with a lot of realtors. And most of the time, as far as I know, the realtor will refer a home inspector to a client, whether they purchasing a property or selling a property. Now, would you recommend home inspection listing before an agent lists the property? And if you do, why? Why would you do that?
I think there's pluses and minuses to that question. I'll start off with some of the negatives. Maybe before. How do I answer this? So, if you don't want to know what's wrong with the house and you don't want to disclose anything, I wouldn't get a home inspection before. But if you do want to know everything to help negotiations along later, I have heard, as feedback from some of my agents, they will always get a pre-listing inspection because it cuts their negotiation phone calls down. It hurries up the close of the transaction, sometimes quite substantially. And then they're putting themselves in the position to, they're not hiding anything. So it's got its pluses and minuses, but well, of course, I'm a home inspector. I would say I recommend having a home inspection every listing, but I know that's not the way everyone's going to do it, but it definitely has its perks. And then if there are little things that maybe the homeowner are like, let's just fix a couple of these things before we sell it, just to, fix it up a little bit. Maybe they want to know about that so they can fix certain things, and maybe other things they choose not to fix. And pass the inspection report along, when they do get an offer, just so the buyer knows more or less what the condition of the house is.
Yeah. Well, as you know, the realtors have several disclosures which the seller has to sign. And if the realtor is not aware sometimes, which can happen, then they don't disclose it. It can be a bad news when they find out later on. So I can understand. Now, would you, I don't know if you have a website where a realtor can perhaps check some of the items what you suggest that the seller do together with the realtor before they ask for a pre-listing inspection?
That's a good question. And you know what? I might need to update a little of that on my website here. I usually give a more or less a verbal as far as what the seller can do to prepare their home, and what to expect when a home inspector comes through. So a lot of the items that we pass along to our clients is we want to make sure that everything is accessible. For instance, if you have an attic access and it's in a closet, and the closet's buried with clothes and boxes and all kinds of stuff, and we're not able to get up in there because of that, we would consider that to be, more or less an incomplete inspection. If we can't look at the attic, that's kind of important. The crawl space under the house, we want to make sure that is accessible. If that is barricaded or bolted shut and there's no other way to get in there, then we can't look at the crawl space and the plumbing and wiring and all the components underneath. We'd consider that an incomplete inspection. If there are electrical panels that are in back, say, for instance, I see that picture next to your closet right there, if there's an electrical panel back there, it'd be nice to have that visible so we don't have to look behind all the pictures to try to find electrical panels, things like that. Also, being that we're hopefully coming up on the end of this COVID situation, we are going to be touching things. We are going to be walking in all the rooms that are, again, accessible. Sometimes if a homeowner asks that we don't go in a certain room, we won't, but we like to get a look at everything. And that means, going into every room, we'll be touching, the stove top to see if all the burners work and things like that. We do wear the personal protection, but some people are still a little bit sensitive to us being in their space, but it's the nature of a home inspection, just so we can get all the information.
As you know, Taylor, everything is changes. And but a few months ago, if you wanted to have a realtor wanted to have a showing on a home, they couldn't take more than one client in at a time. And if they touched something, they had to be wiped off and something. Now, is that any concern for the home inspector when they walk into a home, whether was anybody had any COVID association or they any person was sick in that house? Would that make any difference for you to go into that property?
If someone is sick and present on the property, I would request that we'd schedule that for a later date for both their safety and our safety. And no one really wants people coming through when they're sick anyways.
Sure.
So if they were diagnosed as having COVID and they knew about it and they can vacate for a certain amount of time, then we feel comfortable going in there with all of our own personal protection. We do take that seriously. Knock on wood, I haven't had any scares yet and got all the vaccinations and everything, but we can just try, we can still try just to make as minimal impact as we can and at still the same time protecting ourselves.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about buyers. As I mentioned before, that most of the time the realtors select a home inspector. Can a buyer tell the realtor that I have my own home inspector, I don't want to use the one you recommend? What would you say to if somebody calls you out of the blue and say, I'm thinking of purchasing a home. I was looking for a home inspector and somehow your name came up or I saw it on website or something. What would you say to that person?
Well, first of all, I would say congratulations. It's exciting. How are you feeling about it? That kind of a thing, kind of build a little bit of rapport with them and start talking to them about the house, what the age of it is. Is there a pool, guest house, spa? Get the address, take a look at it. I'd let them know what it is that we do inspect and what it is that we don't inspect. So, I'd tell that person, we'll get up on the roof, we'll take a look at the roof, see how old it is, see if there's any need of further review by a roofer. We'll look at the electrical, what's new, what's old, is if there's any health and safety concerns or installation issues with any of the electrical. We will let them know about that. Same story with the plumbing, what's new, what's old, is a combination of both. Is the installation correct? Do they have the right fittings on old to new pipes, things of that nature? I'll tell them that we'll get down in the crawl space. We'll take a look at the foundation components, the site drainage, what the plumbing situation looks like down there. We walk around the outside of the house, look at fencing, gates. We look at the heating and cooling system. We test that in both heating and cooling mode, let them know how old it is. Is everything hooked up on that? Electrically correct. I'd let them know that we look at the water heater, let them know the age on that, and any moisture intrusion issues throughout the house. We always look for that. I'd let them know some of the things that we don't test. Which if you go into the kitchen, we do test the oven, microwave, stovetop vent, dishwasher. However, the refrigerator, we're not going to go too far in depth on the refrigerator. A lot of times the seller takes that with them. But if there's an ice maker, we check to make sure that it's not, leaking on the floor or anything like that. The sprinkler systems, we do look at those. We look for leaking at the valves, the heads, but we don't turn those on. Sometimes we do, but for the most part, we don't like to do that because in certain situations, it's reset the timer, and then if a house is vacant and no one's looking after it, the yard doesn't get watered for a couple of days, and then they're out of a new lawn, and that doesn't make people very happy. Washer and dryer, we look at the connections, but we don't wash your whites for you or do anything like that. And then let's see, I was going to say lastly, as far as seeing behind walls and, having the Superman X-ray vision, we don't quite have that technology. It is coming. Not yet. I think we probably will before too long, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we do have tools that we can use as indications there are moisture problems, such as or electrical issues, such as thermal cameras, moisture detectors, things like that. But we're not going to physically open up a wall, to see if there's a problem. I usually tell people, think of a home inspector like if you're going to go to a doctor and get a physical. The doctor isn't going to, if you tell the doctor that, I think I can't see anymore, something's wrong with my eyes, the general physician isn't going to prescribe you new glasses. Or for instance, if you tell them that your mouth hurts, the doctor isn't going to tell you need a root canal. They would refer you to specialists that deal specifically in that realm of work. And also, as far as our intention on being there, we don't perform any work. And that's important because we're only going in there with one motive, and that is to disclose any information that you would that you would want to know if you were going to buy a house. We're not bidding on work, so we don't have ulterior motives. We're just getting the general synopsis of the house, and I'd like to say we deliver that in a non-alarmist way. So I don't like to scare people, or if someone calls me and says, you screwed this deal up for me, that's never happened to me, because I don't deliver information to scare people. It's just information, and all this information, if it's good or bad, everything does have a remedy. We would just recommend the person that specializes in that.
I'm glad, because that just takes me to my next question. Is there a difference between a home inspector and a home warranty?
Yes, absolutely. There sure is. So a lot of times home warranty companies will use our inspection reports to, look at and, see if a water heater was working, furnace was working, things like that. But sometimes I do get phone calls, from maybe an inspection I did a year ago, and the person says, "Hey, my water heater stopped working. I'd like to get a new one." And so I look at the report. It said the water heater was old in the report. There was gargling noises, recommend a plumber, all this stuff. And I'd let them know, listen, the appliance was old. Did you get a home warranty? And they'll hopefully say yes. And then I'll tell them to call the home warranty company. And if they cover that appliance, then they're good to go. But we're not guaranteeing that appliances or certain parts of a home will be, working in a year. We can just provide the current condition of it. And if there's any evident problems that require further attention, we'll make sure to point those out.
Great. Okay, well, we're just about coming to my last questions. What other additional services you provide beside the home inspection? And what is the average cost for a regular, 16, 14, 1,500 square feet home?
So I'll start with your last question first, I guess, as far as the pricing goes. So for me, I know everybody's prices are different. I'm definitely not the cheapest, but I'm definitely not the most expensive. We start, the starting cost of a condo would be $350. If it's a townhouse, $375. If it's a single family, 1,400 square foot house, we're looking at $450 or $475. And then as the square footage gets more, the price increases. It's not, we don't double the price because it's 3,000 square feet as compared to 1,500, but it does go up in increments a little bit. We do offer pool inspections. So we'll look at the pool as an add-on. Check out the electrical, pumps, motors, plastering, coping decking. Any issues with that, we'll let you know about. We do now offer thermal enhancements, which we'll look at the electrical components. We'll check outlets, dimmer switches, and look for any thermal anomalies that look a little bit out of the ordinary, and decide what we want to recommend from there. If it is a really tall roof, I'll get the drone up there. We'll take pictures of it. Or if it's a tile roof or a roof we can't walk on, so we'll do that. Usually it's like for the pool, it's 90. If we want to do a thermal, it's 90. The drone, I always throw that in for free, even though you can charge for that. I think that is you want to know what your roof looks like, and you're entitled to that information as part of a general inspection. And then if you do want to add on sewer, if you're doing it with the home inspection, it's $250. And let's see what else. We do provide chimney inspections as well. Not just the basic, our home inspection chimney inspection more or less deals with looking at the firebox and the chimney from up on the roof, checking it for any structural issues. But the chimney inspection where we get the camera up through the flue, we can do that as well. I'd have to check back on the pricing on that, but Morrison, my parent company or the pilot, we do have chimney inspectors that can come out and take a look at chimneys as well. And I believe those are 300 or 400.
Yeah, right. Well, Taylor, listen, thank you very, very much for you have a wealth of knowledge, and you provided a lot of information. I'm pretty sure some of the listeners perhaps are going to contact you, and they're going to enjoy to hear the information, as well as a lot of realtors, as you know. This podcast will be sent out to all the realtors in the San Fernando Valley. And maybe I send it to you, the link, and you can send it out to whoever you want to send it to. But what I wanted to find out, because you have your sign behind you, but we can't really read it. So if anybody wants to contact you, I'm going to leave it on this podcast so they can, whenever they listen to it or see the video presentation. So It's your name, obviously, Taylor Page, and Morrison Plus Property Inspections, correct? And 818-679-6608. Is that the correct number?
Yes, sir.
Let me repeat it, 818-679-6608. And your email address is tpage, if I pronounce it correctly, at morrisoninspects.com.
Correct.
That's right?
That is all correct. And I am a franchise owner under Morrison, so I am operating interdependently. Morrison's, we're getting bigger and bigger, but I do operate as an owner-operator. So if you call me for an inspection, you get me, sorry.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you again. And I just want to say that, my name is Louis Rinn. I'm a real estate wealth advisor with Markman Real Estate and Mortgage. And I'm also a real estate and a mortgage broker. I provide homeowners the solution of saving money and retirement with providing profound real estate wealth strategies, how to do that. So that's what we do. So I can be reached at 818-605-9100. And the email is lrinn@mbonem.com. Well, once again, Tyler, I want to thank you. And when we finish with this podcast, I'm going to send you the link. And you have a great day. Okay.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Louis.
Okay. It was nice meeting you.
You as well, sir.